Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Warrant Committee. We will start by taking our roll. See if our secretary is available. Karen, how are you?
I am fine, thank you.
That's great. Before we do our roll call, Karen, do we have anybody to elevate to?
We have Allison. We do have a phone number, and I don't know if it's a new member. If the phone number as a participant is a new member, if you could raise your hand emoji, I will promote you, but otherwise it's even a partial phone number, so I'm not positive. They raise their hand, so I'll promote them, give them a minute to, like, the opportunity to speak so we can confirm.
Thank you.
Oh, that's a different one. Okay. And Ron just joined us, so I'll move him over as well.
Is that Peter?
It's Holly Mon. I was wondering if that was a family member. Okay.
I think that's Peter's last name.
Yeah, it's Peter
Right.
Ron. So, hi Ron, thanks for joining us.
Good evening.
Okay, let me just, I tried to promote. Holly, if you're Peter, I'm trying to promote you to panelist. If you can accept the promotion. There we go.
Hi, I'm not Holly Mon, I'm Peter Mon. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna mute this. Can you hear me?
We can, Peter.
Would you like me to go with roll call?
Yes, please, if you could go through our roll.
Okay, we have Tom Caldwell, we hear. Steve Rhines,
Here.
Lori Connolly,
Yes.
Elizabeth Dillon,
Here.
Dave Funling,
Here.
Allison Gagnon,
Yeah.
Louis Joyce, Drew Crow, Missy Lee, Julia Maxwell,
Here.
Yermon. I believe we have Peter, we'll come back to that. Brian McGuire,
Here.
Aman Nagasi, Ron Thea,
Here.
and Judy Steele. You have quorum.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Now seeing that we have a quorum, we'll call the meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. So tonight, I don't expect really that long of a meeting or really kind of anything of substance in terms of the budget yet. At the end of the meeting, I'll kind of recap of some information that I've heard from some of the executives in town, just in terms of where we're going and what's going to be on our hit list moving forward. And I think we're going to have a pretty aggressive agenda. Just, I'm sure you all know some of the items that are going to be discussed throughout the year in the town. So the first thing I want to do is just discuss our subcommittees, and for the people who are returning members, you know, you're familiar with them. And essentially what I'm going to be doing is just assigning out certain committees, certain people. You're going to get together with your fellow Warrant Committee members. Some of the committees only will have one person, but if you are a larger committee for a larger board, like the school department or something like that, general government, you're going to have multiple people. And that's just to kind of gather all the information. And, you know, as if you're a newer member of the Warrant Committee, the senior people who are on there will will help you out, and obviously you'll see some of the things that they do, but obviously, work on your own. I'm sure that in the course of dealing with the budget for your assigned board or committee, you're going to learn some things. You're going to probably want to dig in more, and maybe even as the subcommittee kind of separate things out. Because really what I'd really kind of see for the subcommittee is something a little bit different that we didn't do last year. I really would like the subcommittees to kind of gather the information, speak to the necessary people, and come back and just present to the committee. So the committee's really relying on you or your group to feed us information. That's not to say that if Lori does all this work on capital, I'm going to neglect that. I mean, you certainly can and rely on what Lori brings to the table, but I'd also ask, you obviously take a look yourself, but we'll be relying on some of that information. We'll have a discussion about it. Then at that point, I think we'll be pretty well situated to have someone come in, whoever represents that board, the committee that we want to talk with, or and we'll have all the information in front of us. So I think we'll have a pretty good meeting, and we'll flesh out the issues. And that's just kind of what I have vision. So it's really an extra step we're doing, which will require another meeting, but us kind of getting together and going through the numbers, right, and in our meeting setting and having those. Now, I want to say, I took as the chair, I took the opportunity to kind of assign these committees. Some of them a lot of them are based on seniority, and unless if you're a third-year member, you don't want to serve in the committee, you can just tell me when I announce it, and I'll give it to a second year if they want it, or a first year. But what I really try to do here with some of the bigger things like schools is group third years with second years and a first year, right? Because we got to pass the torch at some point, and I just want the people who maybe haven't sat on the committee before, had an opportunity to, just to see how it's done. And that's not obviously, it's not like you're a junior member. You obviously do go full steam ahead, but just I think it'll be valuable just kind of have that, diversity in terms of time on the committee there, and I'm sure you're going to learn some things. I remember my first year I was with a couple of third years for some things, and I think Steve, we were on one of them. It was really helpful because I had an idea of what to ask, but the leadership of that Warrant Committee member was very helpful to me. So that's just a little bit about that. What I'd like to do, or what we are going to do, is I asked 2 of our third-year members to give a very brief kind of little presentation on what they have done over the past 2 years on their various subcommittees, and actually probably what they're doing right now, continuing the work that they've done the year before. I asked Lori Conley and Jay if they could give kind of 2 perspectives. We have an actuary, Jay, we have an accountant, Lori.
It's diversity.
It's diversity, right? But it is. And in thinking about this, I thought that they, in my time in the committee, watching them work, listening to them, they present some awesome information, very informative, from kind of sometimes a different point of view, sometimes the same point of view, but, and they each have their specialties, and they've been very helpful to the committee. So I thought Lori and Jay would be the best ones, and I'd obviously, after they just talk really quick, if you have any questions, we can ask them here, or I'm sure Lori and Jay would be more than happy to speak to you off the record in terms of just getting that guidance. I often, when I approached the committee the first year, I kind of just thought of it like, how do I deal with my own personal finances in my household? And this is sometimes on extremely complicated levels, as Jay has shown us, but some of the boards are very straightforward and easy and manageable. So with all that being said, I'm going to ask Lori, because she's closest to me, to start off. And just, Lori, if you could just share with the committee, I guess and the public too, when we break down into these small groups, like what are we looking to do? Or just what are the things that you've done in the past that you've found helpful in getting information, and then kind of sharing that with the colleagues here on the board. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I was interested in the schools when I got here. And then obviously, as Tom said, there were senior folks. We, got to ask to do the committees that we wanted to do in the departments. So I was able to do it. For me, when I got on the warrant committee, the first year I started watching all of the prior warrant committee meetings from the prior year just to see what it was all about, because I had no insight into town government at all. So I started watching the meetings, and that was very helpful. And then I also started attending the meetings. I would zoom into the select board, the planning board, conservation, climate action, the school committee, finance subcommittee. So I will attend their subcommittee meetings, and I have for 2 years. So that's just something I do because I want to hear what they're saying. I'm not watching the school committee so much. I'll watch that on a rerun, but I try to be there listening when it's happening. So I would attend the subcommittee meetings of the finance subcommittee. And then I would also, with the group that was part of our school finance, warrant committee, finance subcommittee. It's a lot of words to the name of a committee. The 4 or 5 of us would meet with the school folks, and at the time it was mostly Glenn, Glenn Pavlicek, who was the assistant superintendent of business affairs. Now it's Katie Blake. Lizzie Carroll would frequently be there. And then whoever is Mark Loring, I think right now, and Selena and Lizzie are the subcommittee members for that group. So they're on, the smaller committee that I listen to, but then they have their own meetings, like every other week. And then we would have our meetings to go through questions that we had. And it starts with nothing, right, unless you've been following town government. So the schools actually puts together this budget, which has a lot of all of their departments. So half of it is the school budget. And it's the same format for the schools, and it's by department. And it's the salary departments. It's the salaries, names, what their tenure is, their position. In the school department, they have steps and lanes. It's how their union contracts works, which I knew nothing about when I started. And then it looks at where they're currently at and what the expected increase is, if they're in a contract negotiation, or if they're not and they know what the contract is, it'll just carry it out. And then they get into non-salary items. And then on the town side, they also do the similar thing, but it's online in an Excel spreadsheet. And I just printed it all out because, as you've all seen, I like the paper. But it's easier for me to go through and look at all of the departments, set up very similarly. It looks at the salaries and then just general expenses. Some departments have more details. What I like to do is go through and look at, all the people, what's going on with the salaries. Typically, you'll find there are still union contracts on the town side. So again, depending upon where they are in their contract negotiation, it's carried out. Nick and Amy really does a great job with the file. So what I think would make sense for folks to do is and I think you were talking to Nick about getting last year's budget information, because you could start with, we won't have the budget right away, but look at what we did for last year's budget. And it's all of these spreadsheets, and it's worth going through for all of them, I think. I mean, although I was on the schools, like you can see, I have all this information on the town side because I would go through it as well. And as I was thinking about what I do, because this is my job in real life, I actually thought to myself, and I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, we have a list of who's in the library staff. It's a file that we received. It's just a list. It's a salary, and it's carried out for what it's going to be next year. do we really know that those people are on the payroll? I don't know. So I was thinking about it, and I'm thinking that it's possible that we might want to ask for that level of information. Show us that there's all of those people on the payroll. And again, I'm not accusing anybody of not being there, but truly, we're validating what this information is. And if we're just taking a list, are they on the payroll, is what I would ask. And I don't know, I never did that. And it wasn't until I was thinking through this process that I always go back to, show me the origination of what's happening, and then carry it out. And you know, the town departments, one of the things I did the first year is I created a spreadsheet, because I like spreadsheets, and I went back 10 years, took the warrant, and carried out all of the department actuals to see that really the town over the last 10 years has had 2.5%, maybe 3% increases as time went on. The schools had 6, 7, 8, 10% increase. Consistently, it was very interesting to me that that was the case. But I like to look at comparisons. Where did we start? Where are we going? What does it look like? And why is there such a big change? So I think when you go through, each department will have different expenses based upon what they are. The cemetery is different from the Council on Aging versus general government, which a lot of that, you know, tends to be run by the town administrator. But I think getting in and looking through the details and asking what drives the costs. What are the metrics? What are the drivers that increase your costs? What do folks do? You know, is there anything unique about what they do in different departments? Not every department has the utility bills. The Council on Aging does their separate building. The library does their separate building. But the town is, Consolidated Facilities is covering the town hall costs. So I think from that perspective, a lot of the generic admin type, office supplies, copiers, you know, some of the technology will be in the individual departments, but every department is unique, I think. And it's talking to the department heads. And the other thing that they do in each of these is there will be a big narrative. The library will give you an org chart, so that's helpful. But there's also a very detailed summary of what goes on with the library. And the fact that in some cases, if your budget, your total expense, there's a state law for them that you have to keep increasing a certain line item because it has to, I'm forgetting what it is even, but you will increase your, that line item because they have to have enough money for the books. And every department will have something unique, and it's good to understand what that is. And then I like to know what department heads need. Like, what do you need? What are you not getting? What is necessary? And it'll be an interesting, not having been through it before, it'll be an interesting discussion this year related to the override, the potential override. So I think it's really a comparison. Where have we been? If the expenses go up substantially, then there's something wrong. Jay found the electric bill was crazy at the high school.
And we never have gotten to the bottom of that.
We haven't gotten to the bottom of it. It's like government bureaucracy at its best. But the solar panels don't work on the school.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Like, so how do you get to the bottom of these things? But you will find that the more people that you talk to, either within the department or just people in town, people know I'm on the warrant committee, they'll say, did you know this is happening? And I'm like, oh, I had no idea, but tell me and I'll try to find out. So be curious, be open, be inquisitive is the best way to approach it. And then really try to understand the analysis behind it. Like, why are these people getting paid this in terms of an increase? If they're not on a contract and it's, you know, a 28% increase, what's up with that? And then again, I like to go back and kind of look at the trends because that does tell a lot.
Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
And yeah, if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, do you get a copy of the file, Like, is it an Excel or something else?
We'll have access to it. Was it a shared drive?
shared drive.
I printed
Soft
it.
copy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Excel.
Yeah, we'll,
So you can,
It's very technologically advanced. This is Lori's world.
Paper still works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have notes.
I have binders in my garage, just binder after binder after binder. I like the paper too, but you know, others work well with the electronic files. So whatever you want. It got too costly. They used to give us all of this in paper. It was just too much.
Yeah, all the school people got, or actually the entire warrant committee would get, there'd be 15 binders like this from the schools. And then, you know, nobody looked at it unless you were dealing with the school budgets.
Yeah.
and Post-it notes.
And Post-it notes, because this tells me there's a new department. I just never finished reading it.
It's obviously confidential, right? Because it has people's salaries, I presume.
Oh.
Well,
Should be.
Public.
public record.
Really?
That's not to say you should
Right.
post it on Facebook. I mean,
Right.
there's public and then there's public, but it's
Yeah.
public.
It's public record.
Yeah, if you filed a public record request, it would be the information you receive.
Sure.
But I think just, you know, we've never disseminated, you know, the materials, and we keep everything just kind of in-house.
Yeah,
here.
because PII, or personally identified information, is a big deal, right? So we call it PD now, personal data. So it's just, they changed, yeah, I know. But that's a big deal, and they can all be recognized by their name, obviously.
Yep.
And then if there's any kind of number that points back to an employee number, location, social security number, et cetera, things like that, that's, I never thought about that. That's a big risk for them.
All those extra things are not in there, it's the name.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so,
No employee numbers or socials or anything.
you know, I think all the information we have and shared is public, but, you know, we really keep it in-house. It's on the warrant, all of this gets published, it's on the town website.
Gotcha.
Anything else, Lori?
No, that's it.
Anybody else have any? That was very good, thank you. I turn it over now to
Okay.
Mr. Funley.
I sketched out some notes. I'm going to be saying some of what these two have already said. One thing I want to say that I hadn't thought of is that we should all be sharing our information. Like when I hear Lori say she made a spreadsheet with the past 10 years, first of all, I don't want anyone to faint and think they have to make their own. And especially because if one of our colleagues already made it, let's share it. And I'm guilty of that too. I've made some crazy spreadsheets while my time on the warrant committee, and some of them I share and some of them I don't, and not for any good reason, but maybe we could get more in the habit of,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
you know, when one of us does work, you know, no reason for the other 14 of us to do the work. So, yeah, Tom asked me my thoughts about the subcommittee. So here's my first high-level view is that any question, and I'm thinking we're mostly talking subcommittees regarding budget items. Yeah. So any question that town meeting might eventually have about the budget, the warrant committee should already have asked that question, ideally. And any question the warrant committee will have about a specific line item, the subcommittee should have already asked that question. So that's sort of how I approach it. And I'm going to echo something Lori had. It's about being curious. So we're not experts in these fields for the most part, and we're not expected to become experts. We are expected to ask the experts. So, you know, echoing what Lori said, you know, the budget request is a great place to start. And while we won't have the coming year's budget request for a couple months, looking at last year's budget request will get you most of the way there. It's going to be the same, you know, you saw what they were spending money on. You usually saw a narrative of what their concerns were. Those aren't going to change from last year to this year for the most part. So take a look at last year's budget request. That'll really help you get started with knowing what am I talking about. And then you have questions, write down your questions. And what I would do is write down the questions, give them the department head ahead of time. If we're talking, I also always use library as an example because that's nothing controversial. Nobody's going to get heated at this table if I start talking about the library. So, you know, write down your questions, send them to the head of the library, say, here are the questions I'd like to discuss with you. You know, it doesn't do you any good to set up a face-to-face meeting with them and surprise them with questions they weren't expecting. Of course, things will come up, but let them know ahead of time and then schedule a talk with them. Some people like it in person, some people would be fine with the call, but either way, talking things through is the way to get the answers. And then what we'd like to do, you know, what I think we'd like to see this year is once you do that, you come back and present to the warrant committee. And in my imagination, ideally, we learn all the important things about this budget item from our colleague's presentation. We'll probably get a presentation from the department head, And in the real world, there will probably be things that we need to hear from that department head. But in a perfect world, we would have gotten all the information from our colleague who came back and reported to us, and it would just be checking in with the department head. I think that would be great. So what I think we're providing to this, I asked myself, can I provide a different perspective? Like, is there a part of this budget that has been the same year in, year out, and nobody thought about it? I don't think anybody in town hall or in town is doing anything nefarious, but things get overlooked. Is there anything that people just haven't thought about the past few years that I can ask a different question about and put a different perspective on? And I've dug into some budget items, and like last year, I saw some that I thought were higher than they needed to be. And I expressed my opinion, and I came back, expressed that opinion to the Warrant Committee. We didn't end up changing the budget, but I was still happy that I shared that with the Warrant Committee of, okay, this budget has X thousand dollars. You know, this budget is $75,000. I really think it could be $50,000. Even if we don't change it, at least everybody at the table knows, okay, we've got a little cushion there. Let's move on to the next item. I think that's worth sharing. And I guess the last thing I'll say, and Tom alluded to this, is that you don't have to be an expert. We're not supposed to be an expert. But if you are an expert, that's even better. So in my previous career, I worked for 15 years with employee benefits. So I've done a lot of digging into the town's pension and retiree medical and health care. And last year, I did a lot of digging into healthcare. Some of it was working with our finance director and our town administrator, and some of it was, I got the information from them, and some of it was doing work on my own. And I shared what I found with the whole Warrant Committee. So we're all more educated to talk about, here's what's really going on with the healthcare. It probably wouldn't have made a difference, you know, if the town administrator comes and says we want X dollars for healthcare, we're going to say yes. But at least I hope I made everybody a little bit more educated as to why they're asking it and what we're saying yes to. So if you do have an expertise, feel free to put it to use. And when it comes to sharing with the committee, I think even the new people have seen I like PowerPoints. Just because I like PowerPoints doesn't mean you need to do PowerPoints. But you know, whatever way you're most comfortable sharing and conveying information, I think is great. That's what I had prepared.
Thank you, Jay.
Only on paper, though, not a PowerPoint. I apologize.
Jay,
I know.
We asked so much.
The little tear in your eye gets to me.
Jay, I enjoy your PowerPoints.
He's very good.
And that's another thing about Jay. Jay frequently would put together some pretty impressive information for us and then subsequently share it. And it's always good to go back, especially when it's a month or two later, maybe, and we've moved on to other things. So. Lori, Jay, thank you. These are the big shoes in the Warrant Committee. Thank you both so much and all the work that you do and are going to do this here for us. So thanks for presenting. Okay, so now we're going to talk about committee assignments. I want to couch this by saying if you didn't get or I assigned you something that you're really not that interested in, I'm sorry. And I'm going to say this, and the former chair said this, everyone wants to do schools. If you're a first year here, and then maybe something else that you want to do that you didn't get assigned to, you're going to get that opportunity. The senior people got priority, but I can say moving forward, you'll get to change and do something different. So don't be that sad. I've done various. Wait a second. 1 second. Yeah. I've done some various things. You know, I was doing like police and fire, that was interesting to me, and then I was doing things that weren't that interesting to me. So I just want to say you'll have an opportunity to do everything at a certain point. And then once you get on it, if you want to stick with it, depending on who's the chair in the future years, you know, you probably stay on there. Lori, you had a hand raised.
I was just going to comment about the fact that, I mean, as you can see, I was kind of delving into all of everything, even though I was on the schools. So I think whether you talk to your, you know, whoever's on the committee or you have questions, you should funnel them because it's,
of course.
You know, you can learn about any of it.
Yeah.
Provide insight.
Exactly. So just because you're on whatever, don't hesitate.
Yeah, and it goes to Jay's point about not reinventing the wheel and just sharing. And if I have questions about general government or veterans or whatever, I'll send them to you, you know. But what the great thing about it is, as Jay, you know, as we said, that as a subcommittee or the conduit, we're all gonna get to hash it out here. And you can bring something from left field, it's fine. It's all gonna get hashed out on the table. So while there is importance within the committee, kind of we're all gonna get a say as a committee in a vote. And we can explain why we voted, or, you know, what our feelings are on whatever topic or budget issue it is. So it's not like you're losing anything. It all comes back here, and we put it through the ringer. So don't feel as it's any, and I try to do things with, I was trying to be pretty even-handed, so I'm going to, and Karen and Steve, if you could just keep track of these for me.
Yep.
So, let me find them first. Oh, here they are. Okay. Okay, I'm going to start off with schools, just because it's and if you don't want to do this, everyone has to take a committee assignment, but if there's some conflict that you have friends on a committee or board, or you're married, somebody who's involved, we can work it out. But as to schools, I'm going to bring back 3 of the people who have previously served, Allison Gagnon, Stephen Rhines, Lori Conley. Julia, I'd ask you if you would like to do schools. Could you do schools?
Yep.
Thank you. And I'm going to add Peter Mon. Peter?
Yes, sir.
You're going to be assigned to the school subcommittee.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next one I'm going to do is Public Works. Public Works, I'm going to ask Julie Joyce to be on the committee, and Liz Dillon. Liz, your work on Governor's Road is not gone unrecognized. Victim of your success.
It's wonderful. Tell all your friends.
And that's a big committee, and you know, there's a lot going on, and I know that our Public Works director is leaving the town. So we're probably going to be dealing with the assistants and any intern people, but we can figure that out. Okay.
Call him and meet with him before he leaves.
For cemetery, I know Judith is not on our meeting here, but I'm going to ask Judith to do the cemetery for us. As to the Board of Health, Ron, I'm going to ask that you do the Board of Health this year for us.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Thank you. General government, and I'm going to pose this question directly to you, Jay, given
Yes.
your experience.
Shoot.
General government and consolidated facilities. Can you handle both?
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. I mean, the short answer is yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So as to general government and consolidated facilities, I'm going to ask that Jay, Brian, and Andrew do that. Okay. Aman, I think as the first year, it might be a good idea if you tag along with this group. Okay?
So for that and the schools?
Just general government and consolidated facilities. I'd like you to be a part of the group with Jay, Brian, and Andrew. And you'll have a chance to learn a lot, especially from Jay.
General government and
Consolidated facilities.
I'll give you all more details on exactly what, no, general government sounds pretty general. I'll tell you more about
It's very
exactly what
general.
that covers.
Capital, Lori has been our capital representative for the capital committee, so Lori asked me to do that again the final year, so we're gonna keep Lori on there. Police and fire, I'm gonna ask that Macy Lee do that. And Liz, would you mind tagging along with Macy on that?
Yes.
And so I'm asking you to do two things at this point.
Yeah,
Is that okay? Police is,
Police,
well, it is, it's broken down.
fire.
Police, fire,
Like what?
MEMA, and inspectional services fall under public safety. So I'm gonna Macy and you, and I can also join you on that. But I'd like you and Macy to maybe take a look at that. Ron, I'd ask that you do Parks and Rec.
Okay,
Council on Aging. I'd ask that Judy Steele do the Council on Aging. Would any first member, I know we don't have a lot on here, any first-year members like to tag along with Judy?
I'll tag along since aging and I'm youthful.
Okay.
Library.
Library.
Council on Aging.
On the library, I had Julie and Brian.
Okay.
And that's, I think, is it.
The Board of Health, is that just more strictly with the hospitals, or what does that entail?
The board,
The Board of Health that Ron was,
the Board of Health is, it's an elected, it's an elected position in the town, and they deal with inspectional issues, food, restaurants, occupancy, you know, just general like code, public health coding. I'm sorry, Liz. They had a big thing with like COVID. You got, you know, if you reported COVID, they'd call you, you know, so they are, you know, like I said, like Julia said, and like I'm repeating, it's just all the public code, public health stuff for the town.
I know I'm tagging along with Jay and Lauren, but I'm interested in, you know, potentially if Ron needs a hand.
Oh, absolutely, and I'd ask that you know, you speak to Ron about that, just if you want to, or learn more, or
Yeah.
you know.
Because I used to work for the Department of Health.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I will welcome help and camaraderie.
Yes,
Thank you.
Ron. Strength in numbers.
That's right.
Yeah.
Blood Mary.
The only thing we might have had in previous years, we used to have something called boards and committees, which when I look at it in the warrant, it's $500,000 and 2/3 of that is the Council on Aging.
Yes.
So it's like, what's the planning board's budget for studies?
Yeah.
And that's the,
Yeah.
you know, it may not be worth assigning anybody to. I just, you know, when I was
No,
going through my
I'll take
list.
boards and committees.
Great.
I'll do that. Not a problem, Jay. Liz.
Regarding the Board of Health, I was going to say that our moderator recently sent around to the town meeting members the Board of Health's report, which I thought was very helpful.
Oh, yes.
So if you all want to request, or we can ask the moderator to send that to those members of the warrant committee that are going to be doing that. I read it, it was very helpful.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure
Absolutely.
it's available on the website.
Yeah,
but
no,
still,
and-
it was-
no,
it
but
was
thank you for
very-
mentioning it, because I
Yes,
forgot
very
about that.
helpful. We said that. Yeah, that was a good one.
Good idea.
Okay, so now they've kind of assigned everything out. We'll do a recap email, just the general. I know there's not a lot of emails, but we'll just do a recap email just so everybody can see in black and white. If you have any questions, obviously I'm not shirking my responsibilities, but if there's a senior member that you're working with, feel free to call them, feel free to call me. if you have any other questions. We have mentioned this before in our other meeting, freedom of information here. We have a great town employees, we have a great town administrator, great town accountant. Jay, I know Lori worked very closely with them, and as have others on the committee. Don't be afraid to email them. You can just introduce yourself. I'm on the Warrant Committee, and they will respond. And I'm sure you're going to get to meet a lot of really nice people in the town who do a lot of good work. And in turn, with the information they give you, we're going to do some good work for the people in Milton. And this really is about, and I talked to Jay and Steve about this, like getting as much as we can and putting it forward for a town meeting and for a couple of issues, a school building or maybe an override, the town at large. And just really kind of collecting everything. And as Jay said, doing our homework so we can advise the town appropriately at the town meeting and wherever else that takes us. So are there any questions or anything in terms of that? Okay.
Ron has a question.
Ron.
I more of a comment, not a question.
Sure.
I think we're looking at a lot of very contentious issues, and I think a lot of people will have a lot of opinions on various sides. I just think as we're working with the town employees and all these agencies, and I think everyone knows this. I would just remind folks, these people are doing their jobs, doing their best. And I think sometimes, in other meetings I've been to, it can be very contentious and, there's some yelling. I would just think everyone who's come to the Warrant Committee or everyone I've worked with has been super gracious and polite. And I just hope we keep that in mind as we're providing this oversight. I think, if there are mistakes, I wouldn't, come down too hard on folks. I think everyone's doing the best they can. I would just, remind us we're all human. We're all trying to do what's best for the town.
Thank you, Ron. I really appreciate those words. Thank you. And he's right. I think, a couple years back, there's a couple sticky issues we went through. People felt passionate about it, and we understand that. But I think by and large, Warrant Committee does a great job, and I think we have excellent conversations, and there's not a lot of yelling or people getting upset. It happens from time to time, and I understand that. And I think I made a comment in our first meeting just about being recognized when you talk, especially when you have a guest. If you feel like maybe it's kind of difficult to look at the person, look at me. So when I said direct your comments to me. I'm an attorney. I hear all sorts of stuff every day from people who aren't happy. So just but Ron, that's a good kind of way to start the tone, because we're going to be getting involved with some stuff and see where it takes us. So everybody good? Okay, so we're just going to go on to the last thing on our agenda: future meetings. We're going to be keeping the Monday thing. There's no problem on Mondays now. That I believe there was. So Mondays is the Warrant Committee day, okay? As we move forward and based upon speakers and things, we may have to slide away from Monday and add a day, but I'll give you plenty of advance notice if that happens, but we're gonna try to stick to Mondays. Now, I have some preliminary information moving forward, and I said in the beginning of the meeting, the substantive stuff is gonna start back up, so this is subject to change, but I think the select board is meeting in about a week, and they're going to decide about the special town meeting. Okay, so I have heard, and I'm saying I'm just sharing this with you, and if you know otherwise, please speak up. We're going to see when the special town meeting is going to be. So I know there were some December dates, like we've had previous years. There have been some January and also some February dates. So we will find out maybe next week or the week after at some point. I would guess it might be January, maybe December. I don't think February, but I would think it'd be one of those 2 months. If it's an extra few weeks from my perspective as a Warrant Committee chair, it gives us a little more time to discuss the issue and for people to get educated and informed.
but I know, and also I think a part of that, what is going to be on that special town meeting. And again, please interject, but it could be, I think, the potential for a school debt exemption and funding for some plans and other things. So that's going to be the first thing we're tackling as a committee. And in this subcommittee work for the annual budget in the spring, I'd ask that you just work parallel. You know, keep working on the budget, what you think we're going to be doing in the spring. An override, please keep that in the back of your minds. But the first substantive thing that we're going to probably be tackling is the school building. I'm having a meeting with the school financial representative this week, looking forward to it. And through that conversation, I'm going to kind of figure out where they're standing, and talk about them sharing their ideas with us. And that would include, you know, obviously the school building committee, school committee, some other people that had some information for us, town administrator, you know, chair of the school committee, all different people, as many we can get in just to get the information concerning that. I've been told, and I think Nick shared, our town administrator shared this with us, he's expecting some good final numbers by October at some point for the budget. I think that's when we'll start having those solid things from the town administrator and the accountant. But we're going to still, like I said, we still have some information. We still have last year's warrant, and we're going to be meeting with the various department heads. And I guess to kind of dovetail on something I just said a moment ago, I forgot to mention this, the override, we don't know yet. When I find out, I will share that with you. But at this time, I think the administrator, the accountant, and others, select board, are trying to figure out what they're going to be asking the town to do. But I think it's still important that you still keep looking at the budget and keep an eye on it, and get involved with the department heads. Okay. Does anybody have any questions, just kind of regarding any of this? Anybody online? No?
No hands are raised.
Hands raised. Any other final comments, questions? Jay?
Well, yeah, I think I've mentioned the last couple meetings, and I'm not sure how everybody else feels, but I'd love to see the warrant committee take a very active role in planning for an override. Whether that override is 6 months from now, or 18 months from now, or indeterminate, I would love to see that. I mean, if you look at what other successful towns like Hingham and Needham have done, they've started planning for the overrides a couple years in advance. Mm-hmm. So I would love us to be involved with that. And also, if you look at those other towns, what they did successfully, the first thing they did was to lay out to everyone in town, here's where things stand now. Here's how we're spending now. Here's how we compare to other towns now. Not even looking forward to the override, but where we are now. And I would love the warrant committee to step up and start putting that together if either the chair or the committee as a whole thinks that's a good idea. Maybe we could come to the next meeting. You know, nobody came prepared for this meeting. But if people are in agreement, we could come to the next meeting prepared with things that we'd like to see, such as what do our peer communities have for average tax rates versus our average tax rate? What do our peer communities spend, you know, per resident on police versus what we spend per resident on police? Lori, you said something great. You said, you know, how has non-school spending gone up versus school spending? I think the people in town would want to hear that before we talk about an override. And on that same note, how do those numbers compare to our peers? I think this is all stuff that would be good to come together with and share with the town. I think I've given the analogy of it's like your kid learning the birds and the bees. They're going to learn it from somewhere. It's best if they learn it from an authority who knows what they're talking about. People are going to have and spread their own opinions as towns spending and taxing. It'd be best if it was from an authority who knew what they were talking about. And I'll just say that I've been inspired. I've been listening to the planning board meetings. And one thing that clicked for me recently is in some of their meetings, they talk about policy and decisions and things, but then they also get down and dirty and they do they are putting pencil to paper and figuring things out. And it makes for boring TV, but it gets stuff done. And I can imagine us coming together and saying, if we come together in the next meeting and we're all ready, okay, how has our tax rates gone up compared to our peers? Oh, we've got some of this information. Let's pull it together. Let's put it up on the screen. Oh, is that the appropriate thing to share? Or do you want to show it in a different way? I'd love to do that, hit the ground running the next time we meet. I don't know what other people think.
That's the spirit, Jay. I love it. I know we talked, about all the different things, debt service per resident,
Yeah.
Taxes, past overrides, right? So there's like a host of information that we should know and the town, the people in the town should know. And it's gonna really, right, and how it affects our approach to what is being asked coming in and how do we advise.
So if that's the direction we're going, if people want to think before our next meeting, you can have the questions and the answers, or you can just have the questions. You can say, I want to know how much we spend per resident on fire compared to our peers, but I don't know the answer. Bring the question in, and if we think that's something that should be shared.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Anybody else?
That's a good point. I think what I was also thinking, is it can help inform our narrative and response in the warrant, right? So it's just saying we support, there's detailed information of why. That's critical, because if you can explain that, the what is, it's more clear, right? There's 2.5, there's an override on top of that, then there's a school on top of that, then there's a fire station on top of that. This is why. That's important, I think.
Okay. Anybody have any other comments?
I guess I feel like I'm dominating. One last
Jay,
thing. If we are
please.
talking about an override 18 months from now instead of 6 months from now, let's say the town accountant and town administrator say, we don't need an override this year. I still think this is a good thing to do, because if we are getting together with baling wire and duct tape for one more year, it'd at least be good if we're 6 months into a really good planning process, rather than, we're crossing our fingers for one more year. So if Amy Dexter and Nick Milano came back and say, we're not going to have an override this year, I'd still love to keep going with this.
Liz,
I have a procedural question / thought.
go for it.
So I don't know how this works with respect to planning meetings around when other boards are meeting, but I heard a lot of thoughts from people about the fact that unfortunately our meeting and the planning board meeting were scheduled at the same time because people wanted to be able to attend both. So I don't know if it's possible to kind of check with some of the other townwide boards about when their meetings are, or I know sometimes they get pushed or whatever, but if it's possible, and I'd be happy to do some outreach too, so that, I know that there are people who love to attend different meetings, to give them the opportunity and to ask the questions that they want so they don't have to watch it later. Just a thought.
There's an important meeting happening that impacts P6 and 7.
Oh, I was just going to say, that's true. And I think the planning board, because I called about it too, like, why are you meeting on Monday?
I don't blame anybody.
And it was, but
Yes.
it was a scheduling conflict
was
that they needed
Yes.
to because of scheduling, and then the public hearing had to be.
Absolutely. Nor do
So-
I blame anybody for that happening. Of course
No,
not.
But I think it's the rare exception,
Okay,
because they always meet on Thursdays.
Oh, perfect.
Mondays
Okay.
are night, so I'm sorry you missed the meeting.
No.
But
No. See, I don't know.
And it
if
won't
that's-
end, so there'll be another
Okay.
public hearing.
No,
So-
and I don't know if that's a common problem, but it sounds like it's not, which is great. Okay, perfect.
it's not like as we build towards like a
Sure.
town-wide, it kind of gets a little sticky.
Okay,
But I don't think we even had problems in previous years, really.
perfect.
No, this is,
We were kind of like the show.
Rare.
As we should be.
There you go, Mr. Secretary.
Tuning in.
So, given the fact that we're approaching the hour, I'm not seeing any hands raised online. Do I see a motion?
Sure. Yes.
Liz?
Yes?
Julia seconded. Okay, we are adjourned.